We are in lesson 4 now of the Guide to Reading Music. Hopefully at this point you have a good feel for the natural notes in first position, the white keys, if you will, on the piano, and the two or three notes that are on each of the 6 strings pretty clearly in your head, where those natural notes are. Hopefully you've even done some of the earlier sight reading exercises and gone through or have done some flashcard type drills where you say, hey, where's an F? And you know the F's are here, here, and here. So what we're going to do in this lesson is talk about a couple of really important things. We're going to talk about eighth notes, dotted quarter notes, and ties, as well as the first thing I want to get to, and that is picking in time. So it's very important that you practice these with a metronome to develop a very good sense of rhythm and get used to turning the metronome, setting it at some reasonable speed. I've got it set I'm going to set it at 80 right now. 70, let's see. And just talk about keeping the pick moving in time with the metronome. So, got it at 70, I think I just said that. And I want to be able to hit quarter notes. I'm just going to hit an open E. And even if I'm playing half notes, what I want to do is make sure my hand keeps moving with this same motion. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And not let this happen. So the idea is that your hand keeps moving down at the speed of the quarter notes. In this case, the beats. If beats are, sometimes they'll move at the speed of eighth notes. We'll get into that later. But you want to develop this type of motion with the pick and keep it going down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And the downs are happening with the beats. Those would be the quarter notes again. Now, to play eighth notes, all we have to do is hit the up that is already there because I'm keeping this constant motion. We'd be counting this 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Back to quarter notes. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and... But the motion is the same. So, whenever you have in the first couple of exercises that are coming along with this lesson, we're mixing in quarter notes and eighth notes, and very, very important that you keep this motion going. If a note is a quarter note, you're going to just hit it on the down. If it's a pair of eighth notes, you're going to play the down and the up. And in the first couple of exercises, most of the time, if it's a pair of eighths, it's 2 of the same note, so you get a very good feel for that. So if you're looking, take a look at exercise 1, and not even worrying yet about what the notes are, but we see a quarter note, 2 eighths, a quarter, 2 eighths. Next measure, which has 2 eighths, quarter. Well, we've talked about rhythm in a few different angles, and most of it has to do with starting with some long note, like a whole note, and splitting it into smaller notes, splitting a whole note in half, or splitting a half note into halves, which would give us quarter notes, splitting eighth notes, or splitting quarter notes into half that give us eighths. And we do that by keeping our hand moving at the speed of the fastest note, so that every down or up is, in this case, an eighth note. That's all we're talking about so far. And so to play a steady flow of eighth notes, we keep our hand doing down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And again, we'd count that 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then all of our other notes are, in this case, multiples or doubling of those eighth notes. Or we can think of it as starting with a whole note as the longest note, a note that's worth 4 quarters, and cutting each of those in half. So if we take a look at exercise 3, that is similar to what was going on with 1 and 2, but it has a quarter note followed by 2 eighths that are the same note. We've talked about how we combine a quarter note and an eighth note to become a dotted quarter note, and how we might combine 2 quarter notes to become a half note, adding them together. We have another way of doing that in music, and that's to use what's called a tie. It is a little curved line that connects the head of each of the notes. Best to do it that way. Taking a look at exercise 7, the last note of the first measure and the first note of the second measure are tied together. It's really simple. It means that you just let that note ring, and the reason, so that E at the end of the first measure is actually worth 2 beats. Why didn't we just put a half note there? Got the answer? There's no room in the measure because it's the 4th beat of the measure. So we can't just use a half note there. We have to use a quarter note in one measure and a quarter note in the next measure and tie them together. So just as when you play a dotted quarter note, or when you play a bunch of quarter notes, you're playing a down and not playing the up. Well, when you tie notes, you keep moving just as if you were playing them, and then you just don't play them and you let them ring. So taking a look at exercise 7, what we have there is some quarter notes at the end of measures. They're tied to quarter notes or the first notes of some other measures. And yes, we've stayed with just quarter notes, but then we kind of combine, bring some eighth notes in there as well.